First of all, my name is Deborah Mcdell Hernandez. I'm the Senior Director of Public and Community Affairs at Planned Parenthood of Central and Western New York, and we are recording tonight's program. So I just want to let you know that in advance. So if you don't want to be on camera or don't want to participate because it's being recorded, you can feel free to log out or turn off your video at this point, but just want to let you know that we are recording this. And later you'll be able to access it on YouTube, as well as if some of your friends are following us on Facebook, they can watch us on Facebook. It's streaming live on Facebook. So just want to put that out there now so it's not forgotten. Again, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time this evening. And as many of you probably know by now, if you've been reading the newspaper, a real newspaper or an electronic version of a newspaper, or watching the news, today is September 1st, and we're calling this National Day of Action. Planned Parenthood affiliates across the country are doing special actions today to show solidarity for our brothers and sisters, our friends in Texas. Today, one of the most extreme abortion bans took effect in Texas. It's referred to as SB 8. I'll just call it abortion ban to keep it easier for everyone to remember. But this new law bans abortion as early as 6 weeks in pregnancy, which is a time when most people don't even realize that they are pregnant. It also allows individuals with no connection to a patient to file a lawsuit against them. So imagine someone suing a Lyft or Uber driver who gave a patient a ride to a clinic, someone suing an aunt who gave her niece money to pay for an abortion, or someone suing a doctor or nurse at a health center who performed an abortion on a patient. That's all possible in Texas today. There are a few things at work right now. An emergency application from several Texas abortion providers seeking to block the law is pending. We have to wait on the decision of the courts. We're waiting on the Supreme Court. So we are hopeful for good news, for an injunction, but at this point, we have to wait patiently and see what the courts decide. Tonight, we want to reaffirm our commitment to protect and expand abortion for all. Abortion is a personal decision, and no one, including politicians, should make that decision for someone else. Abortion stigma is what makes it possible for politicians to pass laws like the one that just went into effect today in Texas, as well as the countless abortion restriction laws that you've seen popping up all over the country over the last several years. Abortion is safe and legal, so it should be accessible. Every person has the right to make decisions about their own body without judgment or shame. So this is why we're here tonight. We're offering support. We will keep you posted on other ways that you can help the cause. But I'd like to welcome our community partners joining us this evening. We have several people who will share their reasons for supporting sexual and reproductive health, share stories, and simply tell us why it's important to keep abortion accessible. So I would first like to welcome and introduce New York State Assembly member Sarah Clark, who represents the 136th District. Assembly member Clark, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Deborah, so much for having me. My internet just went unstable, right, which is the way the world works, but hopefully we'll make it through. We are in Albany for a special session today, dealing with a few issues that we need to deal with the recovery from the COVID pandemic. I am so happy to be here. Choice is one of my core issues that has been since I was a teenager. And now I'm a mom of 3 with a daughter who's 11, and I couldn't be more dedicated to this cause of the choices we make as women are personal to us, to our families, to our friends, to our doctors, to our medical community, and to no one else. We must do everything in our power to continue to make sure that we keep abortion services legal and that we keep them accessible to all. What we see in Texas is so beyond troubling, not only because it continues to cut off access for vital services that are sometimes health related, personal, and with communities that need to deal with it on their own and not have lawmakers interfere. And from what I've heard today, the law sets it up so that 90% of the people who are accessing abortion services will now no longer be eligible to get them. This is beyond troubling. As a mom, as a woman, in today's day and age, that this is a fight that we are still listening to. And the scariest part about this law is how it has empowered everyday citizens to act as the police, to continue what we have seen over and over again, which is the shaming of women around these choices. And we know that shaming women, continuing to keep this as a criminal behavior, is just so detrimental to what we're trying to do in terms of empowering women and empowering girls to be everything that they want to be. Here in New York in 2019, we codified abortion as legal into our state law. We've gone everything, we are all living in fear that the federal government and that the new Supreme Court could do something to overturn Roe v. Wade, and New York was not going to take any chances. We've gone out of our way to make sure that we are protecting these services. And, for me, that was so important as a state, but it is troubling that we are fighting this in other states. And we know that if Roe v. Wade were to ever be overturned, countless states across this country would do similar things to what Texas is doing. And we would literally have an inequitable country that really, based on where you live in the zip code, would define how you can live as a woman and the choices that you can make. We know the statistics are overwhelming. What is so baffling about this argument and this fight is that we have done nothing to make healthcare affordable to all, to make birth control accessible and affordable to all, to make childcare, family leave, access to secure and affordable housing and food security and living wages and pay equity for women. These are things that if we actually invested in, would actually empower women to have the ability to make so many more choices that were, whoever they wanted to be, and we don't. Instead, we criminalize, we shame, and we try to make laws that really ban women from making choices about their own body. It is overwhelming to me. I will continue to fight where we can from New York, but we cannot be quiet, even in states like Texas. We all have to be in, we all have to fight this together and stand up for our women across this country. We cannot have inequity around this issue. It is so important to me and to everyone on this call, and I'm excited to be here, and sign me up for whatever you need. I'm in. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Clark. We appreciate you joining us this evening. And I know you have to run off to other commitments, but thank you for sharing that tonight.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce a couple of our community partners from Rochester Sexual and Reproductive Justice Task Force. We have Damien Denner and Jillian Quigley joining us this evening. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm very excited to see everybody who's here, and I'm sure that the Facebook Live is also full of wonderful people who are also interested in what we're talking about. I'm one of the co-directors of Rochester's Sexual and Reproductive Justice Task Force, or ROC.SRJ, much easier to say. And our mission is through advocacy, education, and community. ROC.SRJ hopes to bridge sexual and reproductive justice resources and the people who live in Rochester. And a lot of that is very intimately and critically connected to abortion care and access to abortion. We talk a lot about reproductive justice at ROC.SRJ and how reproductive justice and sexual justice are human rights, and they should be rights everybody has access to. We break up some of SRJ into tenets, 6 tenets specifically, and 3 of them really stood out to me as being heavily impacted by this Texas abortion ban. So the first one is the right to choose to have or not have children is a critical right that everybody should have, and this clearly impacts that. Our second one is the right to choose the conditions under which to give birth or create a family. And our 6th tenet, and I'm skipping quite a few, is the right to control our own bodies free from any form of sexual or reproductive oppression. And these tenets are some of the things we use to guide our work and our framework for sexual and reproductive justice. And they are what pop out to me most when I think of abortion bans, because people should have the rights to all of the tenets I just mentioned. And infringing on people's ability to get safe and equitable abortions infringes on human rights. And that's something that we are actively trying to advocate for human rights and the ability to access services. And there's a lot of intersections that this is going to impact. So I'm going to give it over to Jillian, if she's all right with that, to talk about some of those intersections.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jillian Quigley, and I am also one of the co-directors of Rock.SRJ. In speaking of intersections and where sort of sexual and reproductive justice started from, it was created by a group of Black women who wanted to make sure that their voices were also heard. As many of you are following on social media, you may be seeing social media platforms showing that this Texas ban is really going to impact different types of communities. So when we talk about intersections, we're thinking about Black, Indigenous, and people of color, but also deeper intersections of that. So for example, right now, Texas has at least 29 million people living in that state, right? 40% of that community is Latinx folks. So folks that may speak dual languages. And so that's an intersection there. Folks who might have different abilities, folks who may not be able to have access to transportation. And one of the main things that keeps coming up for us is access at this time. One of the local organizations down in Texas, La Frontera Fund, has shared that they are located in the southernmost part of Texas at this moment, furthest away from any state border. And their folks will have to travel at least 9 hours to get to the nearest state, which is Louisiana, which has very restrictive abortion laws, or 12 hours to New Mexico with less restrictions. And as we continue to see this happen and people getting excited, I think about all of us here who actually do this work, and all of us having to come up with $10,000 for each and every abortion we help people get access to. And what does that mean for folks who are Black and brown who are already doing this work? That's a way to silence us so that none of us have jobs, so that we continue to fight and be silenced and have to sort of go underground. And so when we allow for something like this to happen in one place, people get really, really excited that this is something that they can continue to do in other places. And we have to continue to keep our marginalized communities at the forefront of our minds at all times. And really making sure that those marginalized communities know that this is happening, because it's really easy for us who do this work to know what's going on, but other folks who don't do this work on a daily basis, who are not part of those listservs, they don't know that this is happening until they need this thing. And then they're like, wait, when did this happen? And why didn't anybody tell me? And so as we sit here together tonight, please share this on your social media platforms. Please share this with your listservs and folks that you know and people that you work with. Because even if you don't do abortion access work on a day-to-day basis, folks who may need an abortion, and we don't know who those folks may be, all need to know this, right? Because this is not just like a women's issue. This is an everyone's issue. This has to do for folks who identify as non-gender binary, folks who identify as trans, folks whose partners may be male identified, right? Because they're not the, people who get pregnant don't get pregnant on their own. And so we have to continue to remember that this is an everyone's issue. And, even folks who have babies already, right? This can be an issue for them. Folks whose babies, while they're pregnant, may have medical issues. And because this law has sort of gone into places, one of the biggest things Damien and I were trying to figure out are, why are there so many loopholes, right? I know a lot of you are gonna have questions at the end, and some of us may not have answers because the answers aren't in the law. And so we thank you for inviting us here. We thank you for all of the fight that you keep pushing. And if there's anything that we can do here in the state of New York to make sure this never happens here, we're going to do our best to make sure we do it. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Jillian, and thank you, Damien. We appreciate you. All right. The next speaker we have is Reverend Jennifer Jo Von Roo of May Memorial Unitarian Universalist Society in Syracuse. And I'll also add that Reverend Jo has been very supportive of our Concerned Clergy for Choice lobby days, and she participates in that group as well. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, Deborah. As I was introduced, I am the Reverend Jo Von Roo. I serve as a senior minister at May Memorial Unitarian Universalist Society that resides on the native Onondaga and Haudenosaunee ancestral lands in what is now Syracuse, New York. I want to tell you a personal story. I was born into a family of abject poverty. I grew up having just enough calories to survive, but not nearly enough to thrive. I was often street homeless with my mother, who was not mentally or emotionally equipped to raise me. I fought very hard to get to where I am today, despite a traumatic and abusive childhood. When I was in college, I was raped by a stranger in Louisville, Kentucky. I did not report the rape because there had never been any adults in my life who listened to what I had to say, and why would they start now? At the time, I had no health insurance and absolutely no access to affordable healthcare whatsoever. When my body started feeling weird, I had no idea what to do or who to turn to. So I walked down the road to my local Planned Parenthood, where they took me in. They were kind, they were attentive, they were patient with me. And when they shared with me the results of my pregnancy test, I told them the story of my rape. And I cried, and they cried with me. I knew that I was not about to raise a baby, knowing that if I left college, the baby would have the same life I had, and that was absolutely not fair. So after talking through all of the options with my nurse, I decided that abortion was the best option for both me and the baby. We scheduled it to happen in their clinic the following week. I owe my life and my career to the kind people of Planned Parenthood because of how they so lovingly helped me through the process. If safe abortion was not available to me, I would have found other means. There were back alleys, and I may or may not have lived through the process. People with female reproductive organs are going to get abortions, whether they are safe or legal or not. But we as humans whose bodies are necessary to incubate fetuses must have the choice of what happens to our bodies, when and where. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing such a personal story, Reverend Jo. Appreciate you, and thank you again so much. And now I'd like to introduce Tori Valkovic, yes, of Medical Students for Choice from the University of Rochester Medical School. And Tori will share information with us. We've been partners with several people from Medical Students for Choice over the years. So we're happy to have you with us this evening, Tori.
Thank you so much, Deborah. And just to echo your thanks to Jo for sharing such a personal story and really a testament to why caring and safe abortion care is so important for everyone. Yeah, just to reintroduce myself, I'm a representative of the Medical Students for Choice chapter at the University of Rochester, which is a group dedicated to promoting the principle that all people should have access to health services that allow them to lead safe, healthy lives, including all aspects of sexual and reproduction healthcare consistent with their own personal and cultural values. And tonight, I just thank Planned Parenthood of Central and Western New York for the opportunity to speak specifically about the importance of ensuring that abortions are safe, legal, and accessible. Abortion services are integral to and inseparable from comprehensive reproductive health care. This care has been practiced for centuries, and medical advancements in this care have only served to better empower bodily autonomy and promote safe health outcomes for people seeking termination of pregnancies. We know that both medical and surgical induced abortions are incredibly safe when they are carried out by properly trained individuals utilizing current procedure recommendations. In fact, they are much safer than childbirth, which carries a 14 times greater risk of mortality. Denial of access to wanted abortion services have been shown to be associated with greater incidence of short-term mental health concerns, worse reported long-term health, as well as the most harrowing and extreme outcome of maternal mortality associated with obstetrical complications following denied abortion of unwanted pregnancies. So when we think about the impacts of bans like the Texas SB 8, we think about its inherent violence in preventing people from accessing a very safe and necessary service. And we also need to think about how it contributes to a fatally inequitable healthcare landscape that exists here in the US. Data from 2014 shows that over 75% of people receiving abortion care are poor or low income. Thus, abortion bans, along with the marginally less draconian legislative red tape measures like mandatory waiting periods, disproportionately impact these socioeconomic groups, adding additional burdens to accessing this care in the form of additional costs for transportation, lodging, and missed work, which we've heard a little bit about already. And historically, we also know that abortion bans have not prevented the practice of abortion from occurring, as Reverend Joe mentioned, only the practice of safe abortions, specifically for low income and Black and Brown communities that already face inequities in healthcare access due to medical apartheid and systemic racism in the US. The medical necessity for safe and equitable access to abortion is clear, but the reality is that legal protections for abortion rights are required if we are to make that medical necessity known and believed. And legal barriers to abortion lay the groundwork for misinformation that is harmful to patient well-being. For example, many crisis pregnancy centers, which prey on people who are in waiting periods and especially vulnerable due to additional travel and transportation stresses, tout a so-called abortion reversal regimen as therapeutic options for individuals undergoing medical abortion treatment. And this abortion reversal regimen is not medically supported and is known to be actively harmful. But as long as legislatures and courts instate abortion bans and other anti-choice red tape measures, they lend legitimacy to harmful practices like these. As healthcare providers and future healthcare providers, in my case, it is our duty to provide necessary care to patients, provide proper health education, and ensure that healthcare is equitable and accessible to all. That is why we at MSFC believe so strongly in the right to safe and legal abortions, and we'll keep fighting for patients until everyone has access to care. I just thank you so much, all of you, for all of your work that you do to really fight for this access. And thank you for allowing me to speak tonight.
Thank you so much, Tori, for joining us and for sharing that very important component, the medical perspective, which is often left out of conversations in some circles. We have to return to medicine and science more often than we do. So thank you. Next, I would like to welcome Kim Pandina. She's a board member and treasurer of Rochester Now. That's Rochester National Organization for Women. Kim, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much. I'm grateful to Planned Parenthood of Western and Central New York for hosting this event. As sad as I am that we have to have events like these. I'm going to start with a personal story also. When I was a teenager, a few things greatly shaped my life. One being the loss of my father when I was just 14. This loss made me a lot closer to the friends I had when I was that age. One of them was in a very unfortunate home situation with incest that involved her brother. I was happy there was a legal option for her if the need arose. I didn't know it at the time, but my sentiment was my body, my choice, her body, her choice, and she didn't have a whole lot of choice at that point. For many people, abortion is already illegal, despite what happens with Roe, due to their inability to access abortion services. This is because of financial and physical barriers to the service. These range from 6 to 20-week bans, only having one clinic in the entire state, to 48-hour waiting periods. But there's also the barrier of people that stand out in front of the clinics, harassing and even assaulting the people trying to enter and receive healthcare services. I can attest to that right here in Rochester, New York. 1 month ago, it happened to me. I had to see a specialist and there was people holding up signs and I wasn't even going in for what they were holding up signs for, but I had to deal with it. It's just not right. I can't imagine if I was going in for the service, how it would make me feel. These people have also been known to videotape patients and their license plates to further harass them, all the while being protected by the state under so-called First Amendment laws. This means once you have navigated all the legal barriers to an abortion, driven possibly hundreds of miles to a clinic, are then under a certain amount of weeks pregnant, you still have to possibly face these hateful individuals. No one should have to go through that just to receive basic health care and have control over their bodies. Texas bounty law goes into effect today. We have heard how horrendous that is from plenty of the speakers before me. I won't go into the details, but it's just repulsive. We are very fortunate here in New York because of the Reproductive Health Act that was passed in 2019, but there are so many other states we need to stand up with and speak up. This is why we at NOW, along with our partners here, are fighting against, and why events like this are so important and vital. While it is important to note the number of laws being passed and how many states are restricting abortion, we must always make sure to focus on the human impact of these laws and just how inaccessible abortion has become for so many people. We must fight with everything. We must fight with everything we have to fully restore our right to body autonomy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim. Appreciate you joining us. And our last speaker this evening actually will not be joining us. However, she prepared pre-recorded remarks. So many of you are probably familiar with Robin Chappelle Goldston. Robin is the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood Empire State Acts, which is based in Albany. So I am going to play her video clip. So just give me 1 second, pull that up. Let me get it here, hold on. Make sure I still have it in here, okay. Bear with me. Okay, does everyone see Robin on the screen? Good. Oh, wait. Rewind. Didn't realize it had already started.
Deborah, I don't think we have sound.
Okay. That is odd. Hold on. Make sure our settings are. Let me stop sharing for a second and go back. To this. Yes, because it won't do you much good if you can't hear her. So,
I can try to share my screen if we want.
All right,
that.
I'll let you try.
Can we see my screen?
Yep.
All right, somebody give me a thumbs up if you can hear her when I press play.
It looks like it's also at the 3-second mark, so you might need to go back once it plays.
Hello, I'm Robin Chappelle Goldston,
Yep,
President
we can
and
hear it.
CEO of Planned Parenthood Empire State Acts. Today, one of the most dangerous and extreme abortion laws, SB 8, is set to take effect in Texas. This law bans abortions as early as 6 weeks in pregnancy and includes provisions that allow private individuals, including anti-abortion protesters with no connection with the patient, to file lawsuits seeking to enforce that ban. Taken alongside the Supreme Court's decision to hear arguments in the Mississippi 15-week ban brought by Jackson Women's Health Organization this fall, our movement is facing the most grave threat to abortion access and rights in decades, with serious implications for communities across the country. It is not an exaggeration to say that these two laws and cases could radically alter abortion access and rights for years to come. In New York, we did the right thing by passing the Reproductive Health Act in 2019, enshrining Roe v. Wade into New York state law. This will protect New York residents from actions by the Supreme Court to reduce access to abortion, but the fight is far from over. Even in New York, there are still barriers that put access to care out of reach for some New Yorkers, either being financial or where they live. So there's still work to be done here, but we must think broader to help those in other states. New York must continue to be a leader and find creative ways to assist those who don't have access or have had their access severely restricted. We live in a different age than the pre-Roe v. Wade era, and we have tools we didn't have before, like the very safe and effective medication abortion and social media. And I know things look bleak right now, and we all know what is at stake, but it is not over. And we can build back better and stronger and create laws that are more comprehensive and protective than Roe v. Wade. I just want to add that a lot of the challenges we see today is because not enough of us voted, especially in local elections, where we now see the huge impact state legislatures can have on reproductive rights. We are the majority, and I thank you for your commitment to these issues. This is bigger than New York, and we want you to stay engaged and connected with your local Planned Parenthood. Stay tuned and keep fighting. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you, Robin. So I hope you all enjoyed having perspectives from a variety of people from different sectors of our community to better explain how threatening this new law is, the importance of protecting abortion rights and making abortion accessible. We all know that simply because it's legal doesn't mean it's accessible. And with all the hurdles that we see in different states, different communities, what's the point of having something be legal if you can't access it? So you might be wondering, well, what can I do at this point? Because this sounds pretty dire. So we don't want to give up hope. There's still hope. We're still waiting for information from the courts, but there are some things that you can do to keep this conversation earlier when you were sharing your remarks. The best thing you can do is become familiar with the abortion ban in Texas and familiarize yourself with this and educate others on its harm. Share this with a friend, a family member, a colleague, let them know, because I think one of the things that happens is a lot of times laws pop up, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be related to reproductive health, but laws will pop up and some people miss it. It's not on their radar. So if you can share this with someone else, you'll be doing really good work. Another opportunity is to sign the petition. There is a petition, and actually I'm going to copy and paste this and put it in the chat. But if you want to sign a petition to show that you are against
Texas, put it in the chat, Deborah.
Oh, good, thanks. Then I don't have to put it in there. Just trying to multitask here. Thank you. So if you want to show your support, feel free to click on the link or text at the number shared in the chat box. You could also write a letter to the editor at your local paper. It can be focused on this new SB 8 law, or you could talk about abortion access in general, abortion stigma, any of those things, just to keep the conversation again alive, because it's unfortunate when stories like this, and I think this has gotten some good press today, but there is a lot of stuff happening in the news today, this week. So we're competing with some pretty big news stories, but you can do your part as a, I guess we can call it, you've all been deputized as journalists and reporters to share your story, share it on your blog, share it in a local newspaper, post information on the social media platforms that you use, just to educate others on the dangers of these types of laws that seem to be coming at us more frequently than slower. So you can do many things to support the cause. And as we get more news, more updates on what's been decided by the courts, we'll keep you posted either on social media. If you're on our mailing list, you'll receive information through our the notes we send out through every action. So we will keep you in the loop. But I think tonight's lineup of guest speakers, our community partners, did a fabulous job of just sharing stories, sharing the importance of protecting abortion, and sharing what your organizations are doing to help fight for this great cause. So I appreciate you all being here. And I don't know if we have any questions that were received via Facebook Live or in the chat. Just going to take a look in here.
I don't think we've gotten any questions yet, but if anybody has
Let's see.
for any of our speakers, feel free to pop them in the chat right now.
And I see Kim Pomeroy says, if your group ever decides to send a bus or hear of a bus going to Washington to support abortion due to the Supreme Court being so conservative, I'm very interested in going. Please contact me. Thank you, Kim. We will keep you posted. I will let you know that this is one of the big priority items for Planned Parenthood Federation of America. So SB 8, in addition to what's happening in Mississippi with the 15-week ban, these are issues that they plan to continue to lift over the next 6 to 8 months. And I know with the Women's March being in March, that would sort of be the culmination. Hopefully we are at a better position come that time next year than we are right now, but we will keep you posted. And I'm hoping we're at a better position with the pandemic as well, and that we've turned a new corner so we can do things like bus rides with lots of people and large gatherings safely. But we'll definitely keep you all posted. Thanks, Kim. Anything else that I missed in the chat? Lots of thank yous to you all of our community speakers. Many thanks. Thank you for these presentations. Thanks for coming, Marilyn. So yes, so I really appreciate you all joining us this evening. I know these final days of summer are we're competing for your time against a lot of other things. So we appreciate you making the decision to join us this evening. I don't know if any of you have any parting words you'd like to share before I let you all go.
I do. So some things that seem to be coming up for or in my social media, some acts that we can continue to do is our legislation response to what the Supreme Court is doing with Roe versus Wade is to pass the Judiciary Act of 2021, which would add seats to the court. Other remedies, including codifying Roe, are nice, but it also gives all of those Kavanaugh, Thomas, and Alito sort of like the last word, right? So that recipe for failure, as well as starting with the Women's Health Protection Act. And I actually have I copied and pasted early enough, right? For folks to take a look at. So, since we are so far away from Texas and it feels like we can't really do anything. Sometimes it's nice to have some of these national things to sort of sign and share so that we make sure that we fight for them so that it never comes this way.
So true. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share or say?
One small thing to the people on Facebook, all of our groups here can always use new members. All of us.
Good point. Follow all of these groups on Facebook as well. So I'm sure everyone here has some sort of social media presence, be it on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. So look for everyone. And it's also a great way to ensure that you stay in the loop on what's happening, programs and events that these groups are supporting. Anybody else? All right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us on this event. I hope everyone who joined us, both speakers and audience members here on Zoom and on Facebook Live, feel energized. I know it's not a happy day, but it's not the end. With all of our energy, knowledge, expertise, and the people that we have who are our supporters, we can do tremendous work. But again, I think that one of the bigger things is just educating the general public on the harm of this new law and similar laws. So many people just don't know that this is happening. It's not on their radar, but we can be the ambassadors to get this news out so people know what's happening and feel empowered to make change. And oh, and what did you say here, Kim? You have something in the chat. Yes, the president spoke out against it today. Thank you. Yep, and there's a link in here that Jillian just shared with everyone. So if you want to grab, click on these links before you hop out. You have some reading for later. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone. Have a good evening, and we'll be in touch with you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.